Good morning again, my precious friends. Welcome back to the Carnivore Hippie. I'm Aunt Patty. So today, what are we thinking about? Water. How do you feel about water? Do you feel guilty because you think you don't drink enough water? Do you run around all day with a gigantic water bottle and struggle to get down 2 liters a day because you think that's what you're supposed to do to stay healthy? Do you think that it might harm you in some way if you don't drink that much water? Well, how would you feel to know that it's probably, in your case, not necessary at all? How would you feel about learning that there's no scientific experimentation to back up the idea that we need to drink 2 liters of water every day? And how would you feel to know that that much water could actually be detrimental to your health? Now, I'm sure many people who are listening to me already know this, but just in case you don't, where did the 2-liter amount come from? Well, originally, it turns out it came from a report in 1945 by the National Academy of Sciences and Medicine. And I don't know if it's 5 or 10 years, but periodically they put out recommendations for daily dietary intakes. And in 1945, they published the recommendation that an adult male should consume about 2 liters of water a day to maintain optimal hydration, right? Keep in mind that's a male, and keep in mind that that's 2 liters consumed, not 2 liters drunk, right? So where did they get the 2-liter volume from? Well, it turns out they got the 2-liter volume from some mathematical experiments that were done, and thought experiments that were done in the early 1900s that had to do with actually city planning. All right, city planners were trying to predict the amount of clean water that would need to be provided to a certain area to adequately serve for drinking and sanitation, and the amount of population that would be expected to live in a particular area, right? That's what they were doing the calculations for. It had nothing to do with health to begin with. But the National Academy of Sciences did not do their own research. They thought enough research had already been done, which is fine. And they elected to use the 2-liter a day recommendation. Now, again, keep in mind this was consumed water, not drunk water. And that includes all the water that you would ordinarily get in your food, right? Meat is, for those of you who are on high-fat, low-carb diets, meat contains, depending on the meat and how well it's cooked, between 60 and 75% water. Most vegetables, especially non-starchy vegetables, are 90 to 95% water. In some cases, they're even more than that. They're up to 98% water or 99% water. Things like zucchini and lettuces, or very, very juicy vegetables like tomatoes, can be up to 99% water, all right? And starchy vegetables cooked are round about the same as meat, depending on how they're cooked. They can be slightly higher if they're cooked in water. But anyway, eggs are about the same as meat. Hard cheeses are 35 to 45% water. Butter is about 10% water, and heavy whipping cream is around 50% water, right? So if you're eating a pound of meat a day, plus heavy whipping cream in your coffee, plus some butter, plus some cheese, that's a significant amount of water, right? And that's water that you really don't have to drink, okay? And on top of that, the idea that if you drink coffee or flavored water or any other kind of beverage, the water in that beverage cannot be counted towards your total hydration, because whatever's in the water will cause your body to shed more water than it can harvest from the beverage to rinse out whatever it is that you're drinking. Now, in the case of very sweet, sugar-sweetened beverages, that may be approaching the truth. But if you're not drinking sucrose-sweetened beverages, that's not going to apply to you. If you drink an 8-ounce cup of coffee, you're not going to pee out 10 ounces of water just to metabolize the coffee. That simply doesn't happen. This has already been determined. The measurements have already been taken in a pretty large population, and this is just simply not the case, right? If you drink an 8-ounce cup of coffee, you might not retain 8 ounces worth of water, but you're going to get some benefit in terms of hydration from the coffee, from the flavored water that you drink, from pretty much any fluid that you intake, unless, as I said, it is a very, very sweet, sucrose-sweetened beverage, in which case your problem is not hydration. Okay, your problem is the sucrose. All right, so let's just leave that off to the side. So the 2 liter a day had nothing to do with health, but the National Academy of Sciences, being what it is, all government-affiliated agencies are operating on the cheap as much as possible. So instead of doing their own research, since they thought they had it figured out, they'd never bothered to do any more research, and they just continued with the 2 liter a day recommendation year upon year as they republished their recommendations periodically. Which is, I guess, okay, fine, because it was only ever intended to be a rough rule of thumb, a guideline. So then what happened? How did we get here to where people are terrified that if they don't suck down that last 5 ounces of water from their 2 liter bottle, that the dehydration monster will turn them to dust or something? I don't know. Well, enter the 1970s, and 4 big food processing companies. Danone, which is a French company that's responsible for Danone yogurt, Evian, mineral water, and a couple of others, and some candy. Nestle, whom you probably recognize from chocolate, but they have an enormous beverage arm of that company, just worldwide. PepsiCo, which you recognize from the beverages, and Coca-Cola. Right? In the late 60s, early 70s, there cropped up some questions with municipal water quality in several areas. And there was a big scare about various and sundry things being in water, and there was a big scare with chlorine treatment of water, and there was a big scare over the efficacy of water treatment plants. And to be fair, some of these concerns were warranted. But it sparked a US-wide, which then eventually became pretty much worldwide, scare about municipal water, why you shouldn't be drinking it, why it was bad for you. And so what's the alternative? The alternative is, of course, bottled water. And all of those 4 big companies that I just mentioned got really quickly into the bottled water business. And now it's not just a health model, it's a profit-making model. So regardless of whether municipal water in a particular area was safe or not, they started pushing the benefits of bottled water, how it was cleaner, how it was healthier, how it was tested with higher standards than municipal water might be tested, which was usually untrue. There were certain very rare circumstances where it was true, which allowed them to say it. But by and large, it was not true that the bottled water was of higher quality than municipal tap water. Some municipal tap waters are really, really high quality. Like, for instance, I used to live in the Bay Area in California, and where I lived, we got the water at that time. The water was provided by a public utility called East Bay Municipal Utilities District. It's shortened to EBMUD, and it was well known across the Bay Area that EBMUD water was amongst the best in the Bay Area. And it was. It tasted great right out of the tap. You didn't have to worry about it. And when I was traveling, I was always looking forward to going home because I knew that the tap water would be great and I wouldn't have to worry about buying bottled water, because some of the water in some municipal areas, even though they might be perfectly safe, did not taste good. Okay, so I know from experience that there's many municipal water utilities out there that produce absolutely acceptable water. Okay, especially if you let it sit out and let the chlorine evaporate. But I'm telling you, you'd rather have the chlorine than the kind of things that can enter if you didn't have the chlorine. Okay, anyway, you can get the chlorine out of your water really, really easily with a carbon filter, but I digress. So the big four, they start pushing the bottled water. And after about 10 years or so, the market for bottled water is so gigantic, it becomes a very significant source of revenue for these big companies. And of course, all these big companies, Nestle, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, and Danone, also have other products that they're marketing. And actually, if the other products slow down, they count on the profits from their water sales to prop up everything else that might be slowing down. So when you hear about 2 liters of water a day, and when you hear about how your municipal water may not be safe to drink, make sure that the message that you're hearing is not coming from industry. Okay, make sure it's coming from legitimate scientists that have done legitimate testing on the water that's coming out of your tap. Because the vast likelihood is, number one, you don't need to buy any bottled water. And that's the second thing. And the third thing is, did you know that overconsumption of water can lead to poor health? Overconsumption of water, or hyperhidrosis, can actually cause wasting of electrolytes in your body. Lack of sodium, too low a sodium, can cause all sorts of, or that's called hyponatremia, can cause all sorts of distressing symptoms like heart rate fluctuations, irritability, headache, excessive sleepiness, fatigue, even body pain. Now, potassium is another important one. Too low a potassium can cause muscle spasms, cause vision issues, and a severe lack of potassium can cause you to have serious heart palpitations. And then there's magnesium. Magnesium is another electrolyte that you could wash out by over-consuming water. And lack of magnesium can cause serious muscle cramps. It can also cause heart issues. Lack of magnesium can cause you to experience muscle cramps so severe that literally you're balled up in a ball screaming. I mean, it can be that bad, right? My dad was taking a whole lot of medication at the end part of his life from many strokes, and the medicines that they were giving him were making him waste electrolytes. And I remember him on a number of occasions being taken to the hospital because of magnesium deficiency, and literally he was rolled up in a ball, moaning and groaning from the muscle cramps. So you don't want to do this. Overconsumption of water does not do you any good. It can in fact be harmful. What's another way that overconsumption of water can be harmful? When you're drinking a lot, 2 liters of water a day or more, it can normalize excessive thirst and excessive urination in your head, right? So if you're accustomed to drinking that much water, you might feel that it's just typical for you to feel thirsty all the time and be peeing all the time. But this kind of attitude can actually mask the first and most important early symptom of type 2 diabetes, which is excessive thirst and excessive urination, right? So be careful of that. If you're a heavy individual, and even if you've never been diagnosed with a blood sugar problem, if you're a heavy individual and you drink a lot of water and you urinate a lot, you should be talking to your doctor. All right? Don't let the fact that you drink 2 liters of water a day fool you into thinking that excessive thirst and excessive urination is normal in any way, shape, or form. Okay? If you are worried, or even if you're not worried, if you're going to the bathroom and urinating more than 3 or 4 times a day, and you're drinking more than 2 liters of water a day, you should talk to your doctor. Okay? So anyway, what's the upshot? The official recommendation of the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and several other medical associations is that if you're eating a whole food diet, doesn't matter if it's plant-based or animal-based, and you drink when you are thirsty, under ordinary circumstances, if you're otherwise reasonably healthy, and don't have any of a few metabolic problems that would cause your sense of thirst to be suppressed, and you would know if you had one. If you drink when you're thirsty, that will be sufficient. It is not true to say, oh, by the time you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. That is not true. That is qualitatively evidenced to not be true by our understanding of the human body. Okay? We've known how the human body metabolizes water and had a rough gauge of whether or not it's sufficient for human beings to drink when they're thirsty since the early 20th century. We've had anecdotal evidence that this is true for over 200 years. All right? Now, if it was true, think about this in additional. If it was true that you needed to drink 2 liters of water every day to be healthy and to flush fat, which is ridiculous because when you metabolize fat, you create metabolic water. So you're drinking water to help your body create more water. That's just dumb. All right? When you metabolize body fat, you create water. Your body creates water on your own, which means if you're losing a lot of weight, you probably won't be as thirsty because your body is harvesting water out of the fat that it's metabolizing. Okay? So keep that in mind. Drink when you are thirsty, and under ordinary circumstances, for the vast majority of individuals, that's going to be sufficient. Stop carrying around that water bottle if you hate it, right? And just in fairness, if you like drinking water and you don't have any symptoms of hyperhydration, and you don't have any symptoms of deficiency of electrolytes, you drink as much water as you like, right? But don't be drinking it because you think you have to if you don't want to. And don't be worried that if I drink a cup of coffee, I'm going to have to drink an extra 8 ounces of water a day. No, don't worry about that. You're fine in the vast majority of cases. Okay, that's it. Don't want to drag this on too long. Drink your water if you're thirsty, and don't worry about it. I love you all. Peace, love, and meat, and we will talk again soon. Bye-bye.